Hi there, welcome. Today I want to go over 3 things that are probably keeping you depressed. I saw these things on myself and I keep seeing them reappearing over time. And I want to share with you these 3 things because when you become aware of them, it's possible to stop doing them and so avoid to fall back into depressive circles and anxiety. So the first point, which is the most important of them all, is lack of presence. This is fundamental because when you lack presence, when you're not present now, you will give the opportunity to your mind to fool you, to do self sabotaging and self delusion. When you are not present in the moment, when you are detached from yourself and reality, it's easy to get identified with the mind, and this identification with the mind always leads to suffering. The mind is really tricky and it will have various ways to make you go unconscious. Especially when you are depressed, it's easier to stay unconscious and to be lost in these thought patterns which leads nowhere and just keep piling up suffering. So recognizing that is key because the lack of presence will cause other problems. For example, the other 2 points that I will talk about later. And just by being really present and being grounded on your being grounded on your presence, automatically these other problems will be fixed by themselves. That's why meditation is so key, because if you meditate daily, your baseline of awareness will be higher, and so you will be much less prone to be identified with the mind, and you will be able to just watch it and just be in yourself without getting too lost in the future or the past projection of the mind. And these future projections can really cause a lot of depression and anxiety and a lot of stress, while you don't even realize that it's happening because you are unconscious. And the more you project yourself in time, the worse you will feel, the more anxiety and the more depression will arise. Just by being aware of that, of this movement of the mind, and by staying exactly where you are now in your presence, just by doing that, you will not get lost in those projections, and so you will avoid falling back into depression. The second point is overstimulation, overconsumption of content, and just seeking pleasure and instant gratification all the time. This happens a lot when you are identified with the mind, because the mind just wants pleasure. And in this case, when you're depressed, it is seeking pleasure to escape itself, to escape yourself, to escape your current life situation, possibly your depression, but this is making it way worse. And this seeking of pleasure will not lead anywhere. It will only lead to pain, because there are two inseparable sides of the same coin. The mind doesn't realize that, but you can become aware of this. You can become aware that this is just damaging in the end, and it is doing more harm than good. And if you already know this is perfect. This is the sign that you are already aware of that. And just by being more and more present, you will become even more aware of this, and it will be possible for you to not get lost in that movement of seeking pleasure. So this seeking of pleasure, just by awareness itself, can be prevented. For example, bad habits that you have, maybe addictions, can be prevented just by being completely present, because when you're aware of your mind, of what it is doing, and you're not identified with it, you will not fall for its tricks. You will see that. You will be aware of that. And personally, that's one of the things that I struggle most with, this constant seeking of pleasure, but it's really common. The thing is that nowadays it's much more easier to fall down onto this, because instant gratification and pleasure and just constant dopamine sources are easily available today, even for free, with social media and content consumption platforms, Netflix, internet in general. You can just consume and consume and consume forever without a stop. Let's not even talk about porn, which is, even much more dopamine. So you have all these sources of pleasure, and for your mind there really is no reason to not go for it, because it just wants pleasure. And the more unconscious you are, the more probably you will fall onto these things. And I really tried various techniques and ways to avoid to do that. And I can assure you that in the end, the only thing that you can do is, as I said, really be present. Because when you are present and you are aware of what is happening as it's happening, it's much harder for the mind to create identification out of wanting the pleasure. And so you'll just see the movement and be able to just not react to the craving. Regarding reactions and what I just said, I recommend you to also watch this video, which is about this constant reaction that the mind does all the time, and how you can stop being so reactive, which in the end is by presence. And this constant indulgence in pleasures will destroy your dopamine baseline, and when your dopamine is fucked, you are really on a bad situation. You will feel like shit all the time, no matter what. You will have no motivation, and this will lead to you not being able to stick to the good habits that keep you out of depression, and will not be able to pursue anything that you want to do that maybe brings some joy to your life. So you will not feel pleasure with anything. It will cause anhedonia, because your dopamine receptors are just down-regulating themselves and are just less sensible. And so you will be on this really ugly state, which is detrimental to your whole life and will make you go deeper into depression. To do that, to break this, I really recommend you, as I said, first to really augment your presence, really ground yourself in the now. Don't follow the mind on the future or the past. It has nothing to give you except suffering. And I really recommend you also to do a short dopamine detox, just to reset your dopamine. So then you'll be with a fresh start and you can continue to be aware of this movement of pleasure and be less reactive to these cravings. So yeah, dopamine detox is really recommended to really have a new fresh start. My last point is victim mindset and complaining. I really suffer a lot from that. I think is a coping mechanism that my mind have learned over the years as a survival coping mechanism. And this is super damaging. This is a really toxic response of the mind. And becoming aware of how this happens and why this happens can really free you from that. This is usually used by the ego self to just disdain responsibilities, and it's an immense negativity which makes you just say, I'm not responsible for that, there is nothing I can do about it. And rather than accepting that maybe there is nothing that you can do about it and change your relationship with the problem, you just go deeper and deeper into this hopelessness, into this I can't do anything, this is bad, this comes from the external and is making me feel bad, when in reality what's important is your reaction to the event, not the event, the external thing by itself. This has no power over you. The external thing has no power over you. You have power over you. And the thing with the victim mindset is that it usually brings a lot of identification. So it's really something that makes you go unconscious really fast and can be a reaction that you have to a negative event or to high level of stress. And the key thing here is to really become aware as soon as it kicks in. Just become aware, okay, that's the victim mindset. Recognize the pattern of the ego and do not get lost in it. As much as you can, observe it. And if you have a constant meditation practice, it's easier because your baseline of presence will be stronger, and the more presence you have, the easier it is, as I said, to not get lost, not get identified in that movement of the mind. So recognizing that can be the difference between falling back in a negative spiral, which can even last for days or weeks, or just breaking through this and being back to yourself in a matter of minutes by just not getting lost in it. Of course, the more you are identified with that kind of reactive pattern, as for example I am, the more it will continue to appear with time. But the thing is to keep reminding yourself and keep being present even when it comes again and comes again. It will try to attract your attention, attract your identification, but don't fall for it. Just remember what I'm saying to you and it will make a huge difference. So another really effective thing that you can do to counteract this pattern is to shift your focus towards what you can control rather than what you cannot. Because this victim mindset is all focused on what you can't do about the situation. That's what's caused the hopelessness and the depression and anxiety, and can make you retract and contract into yourself. So if you shift your focus toward what you can control, which is actually a really common Stoic practice, by doing that, you will cut off the victim mindset. It will not be able to perpetuate itself, and you will feel again some control over your life and some possibility of acting to get out of the situation and to improve and change the situation, rather than getting lost in things that you can't do anything about. So when you are in this kind of situation, there is basically only three things that you can do. The first one is to change your relationship with the situation, how you are relating to the situation. The second one is to change the situation if there is something that you can do about it. And the third one will be to completely accept it if you can't do anything about it. Okay, so that's it. I really hope that you found the video useful. If you are struggling with depression and anxiety, I really recommend you to check a free ebook that I put up on my website. It's called the Depression Handbook. There you will find the best tool and behaviors that you can use to get out and stay out of depression. This comes from years of my personal experience with depression and research about that. I collected what I found to be the most effective tool and behaviors, and also nootropics, to help you to not fall and not just keep staying in that depressive loop that can seems to be hopeless and really infinite. It is not. There is some practical things that you can do about this. Check out the book. Other than that, if you want more direct help, specifically for mental health and self and ego understanding, so understanding the mind and how it creates suffering and how it blocks you even from reaching your goals, for example in self-improvement or fitness, feel free to check out the link below for a coaching call with me. That said, stay strong, don't fall for the mind, and I hope you have a fantastic day. See you on the next one.